This is The Stash, and you're listening to the Business Bottom Line podcast, coming to you from the Jewel City of the Mountains, Greenville, Tennessee. We're in the foothills of the Smokies, talking business with people just like you who are responsible for the bottom line, sharing business tips to inspire, inform, and improve, and turn your bottom line from red to black. Well, today we're here on site at Irish Books, getting acquainted with Mr. Americo Rodrigeous and the wife, Kimberly.
Yes.
Does she go by Kim or Kimberly?
Kim.
Kim. Okay. I thought that was correct. So this week is their grand opening. It just started Labor Day on Monday. And so we're going to get acquainted a little bit and hear a little bit of the story, which is why I always like doing this, is to hear the story behind what's going on. So obviously your fascination with books has been something for a long time, because this has been a project. So before we do that, let's talk a little bit just about you. Tell me a little bit about where you came from, just a little family, a little snapshot of family and that kind of thing. And then we'll talk about your dream in the bookshop.
Okay. Yeah. So my family is sort of first generation Portuguese.
Okay.
My mother and father, and they both came to America and legally got residency here in New Jersey. And so I was born in New Jersey.
Okay.
And then they moved us to Florida, and we were there about the time I was a teenager, and I lived there ever since, up until a few years ago when I got here to Tennessee. But I gotta say, my respect for books came from my father's side. Just this reverence for education in general and what books could do, and the love for coffee really comes from both of them too. I can remember as early as 12 or 13, sitting down and them having one of these mocha pots,
Okay.
that you heat on the stove.
Mm-hmm.
And it produces a nice kind of espresso-like coffee, or stronger coffee. And they would put just a little bit of milk and sugar in it, and just a really warm feeling in some of those cold areas like New Jersey.
Sure.
That, family at the table kind of thing. That's, you never forget those kinds of moments. You don't realize what's happening to you.
That's true.
But you're gaining this respect for things that will later influence what you do.
It's kind of a foundational thing that you're not aware of. You don't focus on that much, but it has consequences later.
It does.
Expressing.
It does. The education thing, same thing. I didn't, he always wanted us to go to college and get a better education, because that was the thing you did in the 90s, 2000s. Things are changing a little bit now.
Right.
People are pulling away from that a bit, but that was the American dream. It's get your kids into college, and my father emphasized that. And I think you gain a respect for books if you're doing that. Hopefully.
Obviously, you did something before the bookstore, because you have lots of skills that what little I've been around, I've seen and been amazed by. So, where does that come from?
My father, yeah.
Okay.
My father, is early as I can remember, maybe 7, maybe even 6. He would get us involved in all kinds of things, whether it was animal husbandry, any kind of farming. And you would think, well, how do you do that in New Jersey? Well, you do. He had a lot in the backyard, and right in the middle of the city. I mean, you could see the World Trade Center from there when they were up. And he had a vineyard in the backyard, and it was pretty extensive for a little, it was a small yard, but he grew it with some aluminum poles that went over the parking lot. and it was just like, you know, they talk about green spaces in the city nowadays.
Sure.
He was already doing that.
So he did it before it was a thing.
Yeah, in the 1980s, he had already worked that out because he's Portuguese. So if you've ever gone to Portugal, you'll understand that most of the country, especially the northern part and the central part, is covered in vineyards. Everybody and their mom has a vineyard, probably has a cellar, and they're making wine, and it's just part of the culture.
Gotcha.
So for him, it's like, if
Natural thing to do.
I can't do it now, I've got to make it here. And he brought that with him. He was quite the guy.
No, that's pretty cool. So, why East Tennessee? Why Greenville?
Yeah, so we were in Florida, and during, I would say that COVID sped it along, but I think we wanted to go to an area that was freer than the area we were in Gainesville, particularly the city. Florida is in general a pretty free state, but right after COVID hit, things became much more restricted in that city, much more you really got a sense that people didn't value community as much, even though they may have given lip service to it.
So,
and so we looked for a place, and we searched in different areas, and I've always loved the mountains. My parents are from the mountain regions of Portugal, and my wife found a house here in Greenville, and so that was part of it. And of course, we loved the town. We had a great experience coming into the Catalyst.
okay. So you found Catalyst early in the process?
Yeah. And, we spent a few days here, and just got a sense that this is the kind of place we wanted to be at. But yeah, that's how we came to be. We wanted to move from a very humid climate to somewhere more temperate where there's actual seasons.
Yes.
And because we had lived in Florida all our lives, mostly. I've been there about 30 years. She had been there the whole time she was young.
It is different when there are distinct seasons because each one has its splendor, as I might call it, and intrigue and beauty and all that. So it's different living in that area.
It is.
Yeah, and the thing now, I like the thoughts of going to Florida just because it's warm and it's somewhat tropical, right, in parts at least. But there's lots of things going on there weather-wise that we're protected from here. Yeah. So
the hurricanes were always a thing. I mean, humidity is just, if you visit and you go to the beach, you probably think, well, this is paradise for a week or two. But if you're there every day, it's different. It is. Yeah. And if you work in it, if you're outside, we like to be outside. We like to garden. We do those things here. We wanted land. We got that here. And I wish we had done it sooner, but we had family that was that we had to look after before we could become. Sure. That was it.
Well, that says something about character, that comment right there about family. I know family's important to you. In fact, there's more than just you and Kimberly.
Right. Yeah. My mother-in-law came with us.
Okay.
And she's a big part of, the bookstore too. Definitely provides a lot of the background help. Looks after our kids, puts in books, constantly helping us out.
And you have 2 daughters, right?
Yeah. Definitely, that's one of the factors in this book. You could I could have done something else,
Sure.
but I think 20 years down the road, what would be something they might be interested in? Maybe they'll be interested in this, even if they're not. It's here.
Mhm. It's kind of an anchor
Right,
for the family,
right,
Yeah.
right.
and somewhere they can be when they need someone to be.
Exactly. Yeah. I think of that way about Portugal too.
Mhm.
I still have some connections there. My parents had a home there. I take them back.
Okay.
I try to give them that experience. They're Americans. And they want to be Americans, but I also want them to know the legacy of the struggle of an immigrant
Sure.
that, had to leave their country, had to, find a better life, did it the right way, worked hard. There's a lot of struggle there, and if you understand it, you'll be better off.
Yes. Yes. Well, that's a wonderful perspective, and I think we would all be better off if we took some opportunities to experience some other cultures, even on a short-term basis. It helps give you a different perspective on the world, and it certainly, I think, keeps you from feeling too important because you realize how big the world is.
Absolutely.
We're just a small speck in it,
It is true. It is true. We are just a little bit.
A little bit. Well, I'm glad you're in Greenville, and we haven't got to know each other all that well, but we've had interactions over the past year or so, and I've kind of been here off and on as you've made progress, and it's amazing what you have done. I tell people all the time, I should get the picture of this building when you bought it, just so I could say, look at this, because it's like, oh my goodness. And you're across the road from a historic property, and it just adds to this area so much physically and aesthetically beautiful what you've done.
So I appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah. But the books, that's the focus. So give us a little picture of all the things you've had to do to get this to this place today, because it looks fabulous in here with how the books are organized and all your beautiful bookshelves.
Right. Yeah. So, we started with just trying to find a site. That was no easy thing. It was a few months, maybe even 6, where we were looking, and it was just we were just not finding. We really wanted to be near Depot Street initially, but then yeah,
It's really hard
right,
to find a spot.
right, and we were starting. We had found another place off of Tustin, and he had made an offer, and it didn't work out. It didn't work out. That would have maybe been suitable, maybe, but it didn't. And so we kept looking, and then this, the for sale sign on this place came available, and I just thought it was a perfect location. I mean, it couldn't get any better than this location. But it was a garage. And
it was an eyesore, let's be honest. It was an eyesore when you started.
Yeah.
It took a lot of dreaming and vision to get to this place today.
It was rustic, and it was just really thick gauge metal on the outside, and there wasn't very much finish on the inside. It was
Bare bones.
bare bones, really. And so as soon as we got it, started working on it. And the first steps were just getting a local engineer, I believe he's well known here, and he just took a look at the place, and I thought, can we remove some of these supporting columns and that sort of thing? He's like, no, you can't remove some of these things. He's like, and you're going to need to reinforce some of these things. So it was a surprise, but we were able to do that. And so that was the first thing that happened. And then we put a roof on it because there were leaks. And that was the second thing that happened. And then we had welders in here cutting out stairwell. And I really never stopped. There was steel plating that was about a little bit over a 1/4 inch thick. And these things are heavy. it took four grown men to lift them off the floor and reveal this wood floor that was down. And we did that, and we got it all out of here. And then underneath, because those plates were here, the condensation would actually rot some of the floor. So I would say, maybe 33% of the floor was rotted. So that was my job for the next few months until I could find a contractor to really take on the project. In those months, I was just seeking out a contractor. And I went and met with contractors several times over and over, and they never worked out. Just for one reason or another, they either couldn't do it, they were too busy, didn't have enough manpower. Some of them said they would come and never did come. And then, of course, because it was a commercial space, it had a little bit more regulation than a residential build. And so I finally was trying with one last contractor, and I was going to the building department, and they told me I couldn't do it with that contractor because his license was too low. And I come across one of my friends that in our Delightful Days homeschooling program, who was a contractor. And I didn't want to bother him because I knew he was a busy guy. So he was Luke Birchville Construction. And I go by him, and as I'm leaving the building department office, and he's like, "You didn't get a permit yet? Let's go back in and see if we can't get you a permit." And I think that was like a good turning point, because as soon as he took over, he was able to take off the shell of the building and put on beautiful siding that you see now, and do so much of the big projects that I just wasn't able to do. I finished all the flooring, and that was a lot of work for one person, but I did that mini wall that you see here too, and I stained all the boards. And we had a vision for, we didn't really, some of these things that look really beautiful, like the ceiling, they were kind of like, oh, maybe we should do that. They weren't really like, this is what it should be,
Right.
or this mini wall. It was like my wife made the aesthetic decisions, and then we were like, we should do that to the ceiling. And then it happened. And so I think, I wanted to get it done in January, and we got done in September, so 9 months later, it opened. But I'm glad, because it wouldn't look as original and as nice as it does in here without that lead time.
Although, and all those details, and some of it was just like, as you moved along, you're seeing things that you hadn't thought of up until that point.
Absolutely.
Like the detail in the ceiling, which adds a real warmth and interesting touch to it.
Right.
So I think it's so cool how you've brought in all these things, and yet you've maintained an element of history, of the historical piece of it still here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The framing, there's timber framing in the basement that is from the building is 1940.
Okay.
And I believe it was an oil depot when it first started.
Right.
And I got more description from the previous owner just recently about it, where they would bring these oil drums in from the railroad and distribute it from here. And they had a lift inside here. So that, we had to cut out a lift. The lift was still in here.
Right. So you showed me part of that in the basement, and huge timbers and things down there to support the weight of what was happening.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. They had, they at one point they told me that they had trucks coming into this garage.
Backing in. Oh,
so they really needed it built.
Right.
So, but I think at some point the trucks got even bigger, so they couldn't even use the garage. So that's what he said.
Yeah. Over a span of time, a lot of things changed.
Right. Yeah, right.
Sure did.
1940s is almost 100 years
now. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So let's talk a little bit about the business, because we're talking here on the Business Bottom Line podcast. Right. So let's talk a little bit about the business itself and how you're organized. And, someone might not even think about that when they come in because there's so many books to read, but there's business element to this, which takes some planning and administration and people and all that.
Yeah, I have some business experience with businesses I've run over the years. So I was a behavior analyst before.
Okay.
And at the same time, I've managed rental property. So all that sort of has helped me, because you start to understand the accounting of something like this, and it's useful. It's useful. As far as the business aspect of it, we don't have employees yet. We everything we built in the way of infrastructure was designed to be really a long-term project that could maybe generate revenue over time. The installation is designed not only off of some of the train noise, but keep it really cool in here and very efficient. It doesn't give you a big bill.
Right.
Our machine that produces milk very rapidly for a coffee drink. It's hygienic and it's quick. We were able to do 126 drinks, maybe 120 of them were coffee, in part because of that machine. I think that was one person doing it. I think high volume coffee shops can do that, but they generally have a couple people working a machine like that. So that milk machine was invaluable that day. So it can produce high volume. We weren't really trying to go for that. I thought it might be a possibility, but I never imagined that.
Americo's referring to grand opening on Monday, which almost wiped him out in terms of energy and work, which was wonderful. The community just responded so well, and which I'm going to get sidetracked, but it's just so good to see something that the community needed. Maybe in some ways they didn't know they needed it, but they did, and they responded when you had presented it. So I think that's just fantastic.
Yeah.
But so you're saying a lot of the business end of it is pre-planning and thinking about how to operate efficiently.
Absolutely.
With less people.
Absolutely.
And so that's important for people to think about when they're thinking about business, because if you get into a employee or people heavy business, that brings on a whole new set of problems. Right? So by planning the way you have, you've reduced that level down.
Absolutely. I mean, and there were a lot of iterations that were thought through, like, and again, this is not what ended up happening, but these days there are even coffee shops that are, we thought of just coffee shop. We thought of just the bookstore. And when you're thinking about just the coffee shop, there are now completely automated coffee shops where there isn't even a person. And now that wouldn't work for a bookshop, because people want to interact. But I like that we went through that iteration, thought that through, and probably for a week or two. I was like seriously considering it. But in the end, it doesn't work with the space like this. And I'm glad it didn't.
Right.
It
wouldn't have been ours books.
No. But you talk to people and you ask about it, and then you start thinking, well, what kind of problems? Anytime you automate something, you have to have a technician of some sort. Someone has to fix these things. And that's no different with the milk machine either. It has its quirks. But yeah, I think just one of the biggest things for me is always keeping costs low, so that you can return a value to your customer. For me, it's my parents were that way. They ran businesses. My dad was a insurance agent and a real estate agent at the same time. And he always kept costs low in everything he did. And he tried to do that in every facet of his life, even when he didn't need to. It was just a habit, he was born poor, and so was my mother. And so they didn't have a lot, and so when you're born that way, you have a great appreciation for having food on the table and working hard and just saving as much as you can. So I take that process seriously. I'm probably not as strictly fiscally conservative as they were, but I also see the value in not just throwing money around on something. If it has to have a value that will return over time, whether it be monetarily or something more general, like a community spirit,
Sure.
like a bookstore does.
Sure. Well, that's where the principles you learn, you're applying them in a little different way, but they're the same principles that you're going to have your family. Yeah. And I kind of think of thinking of you and family and the bookstore, and it's like part of your lifestyle going forward, isn't it?
It is. When I think of it, it so reminds me of my family. Growing up, he would operate his insurance agency. He would invite customers. My father was kind of unique, and he would invite customers down into his cellar and have a glass of wine with them.
Nice.
And that was part of his business charm.
Sure.
And then he would also know when to stop working. That's something I think we as Americans really need to. We're very hardworking people, I think.
Yes.
Probably
yeah.
more than most of the world. I don't know, but
I think, and that's, I have been a workaholic, and I have confirmation of that from witnesses, but most of my life. But I do like working, and I've been blessed to be able to do a couple of different things in my life that I really enjoy, which makes it great, But there is a sense in which you've got to integrate life and have time for family and faith and all those things, and not compartmentalize it all and keep it in different places. I think that's how you enjoy life better.
absolutely.
Is having an integrated life. That's how I look at it.
Yeah. My central focus is just being able to be around the table with my family, and be able to impart that same sort of life that my parents imparted in me. That cultural value of you're at the table and you're with your family. That to me is most important.
Well, that's a great thing, and that reminds me. I need to ask what your daughter's names are.
It's Avelina, and that one's kind of a Portuguese name.
Okay.
And Emma Rodrigeous.
Okay.
And that's more American, but both of them translate well. Obviously, Avelina is a Portuguese name, so it translates already well. And we call her Avi in English. But Emma also, it's the same in Portuguese. Right. We wanted to be able, so that her aunts and uncles and cousins and all that in Portugal could easily say their name.
Sure. Yeah, it's important when you're going to spend some time there. So we've talked the spectrum, which is what I like to do because I love to hear stories, especially of people starting businesses. It always intrigues me when someone starts a business like, I would never have thought of that as a business. And yet here we are, and Irish Books is a reality now, right? And it's launched and it's going forward. So from this experience, what would you share with somebody else that says, I think I'm going to start my own business? What tip or insight would you share with someone that might be on that track, or maybe someone that has started and they'd like to do better at what they're doing?
Okay.
What would you share?
Yeah, I would say be persistent. Things always take a little longer than you think they will. And I follow your own vision, because you'll hear that bookstores are dead. In fact, my last job, which I did for 20 years, they told me that science was dead too. So they've been telling me all my life that the things I do, people in general will tell you these things, that they're not going to work out, that they're not going to be right. And you just have to put that aside and just ask yourself, is this something that I would purchase, or is this something that makes sense? Does this work for the average person? Can I make this work? And study it. I mean, obviously, don't make a decision. I always say, give yourself a week or two to make a decision on anything large like that. I'm learning that as I get older. I make much better decisions than if I try to do them in a day. When you're young, you're like, oh, I'll do this. And you run with it, and you made a bad decision. But if you give yourself some time, you tend to make a better decision. And with a bookstore, I think it's the same thing. People will talk about how bookstores have reduced. Before Amazon, there were about 7,500 in the US, and now they're about 2,400. But they're actually increasing now as time goes on. So the rush of Amazon, I think, is over. People can use Amazon, they can, but bookstores are something different than Amazon, aren't they?
Absolutely.
They are.
Absolutely. Yeah, because the people element's not there.
Right.
That's what I was talking with someone this morning on a call. We were talking about challenges in our business and digitization and how that works, and the two challenges of people and digitization, and for the people to learn how to use what's there and what's coming is a huge challenge, right? Because you can have all these wonderful gizmos and software pieces, but if no one understands how to use them, right? No, and so that applies to you, because you've went a very high tech coffee shop backbone,
right,
so that you can operate it yourself, which is wonderful. But that's also a piece of working with modern technology,
yes,
and then learning how to use it and integrating that in your business.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, I mean, that machine. I've had to connect with tech support in Germany just to get it to work and work exactly so. And it does require a lot of patience and several hours of just sitting on the phone and working back and forth with people to get things exactly so. Yeah.
But then you have a Monday where all the hard work paid off.
It does.
You just served all those people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine steaming that much milk. 120 steamed drinks.
Yeah.
And then there's just some things you can't even really do. Cold foamed milk is not easy to do on a hot machine.
Yes.
So it's able to do that.
Well, that's great insight and a wonderful story. I thank you for taking time to share it with me, and we'll share it with others on the podcast, and let somebody else be inspired, and hopefully learn a thing or two about starting a business and making it work.
Yeah. And if any of the local people want to come by and talk about it too.
Great.
The business aspect of it is quite a piece, and I'm still learning, because like I said, my businesses were not retail before this. So it's a different animal. But
Yes, it is. My saying is that everyone should work in retail some before they die,
yeah,
because you have a different appreciation for things
for
when you
sure,
work in retail.
for sure. I'm going to look at it a lot differently after
Uh-huh.
what happened to me on Monday.
Well, most things in life, I think, are two-sided coins. There's the really good part, but then there's the other side. So,
Right. Yeah.
so all in all, it was a wonderful launch to something
Absolutely.
you've been planning for all this time. And the part I would say too, recognizing just in talking with you, is having a passion for what you're going to do, because there's days when it doesn't feel like it's going to all work or come together.
Right.
Right. You said persistence. That's an important word.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That can't be emphasized enough.
Yeah.
If you're not persistent, nothing will get done. There were several times during this project, just renovation. You start to question yourself.
Right.
What am I doing all of this for? Is this going to work out? And that's difficult. You have to have a good persistence.
Yes,
You're right.
absolutely. That's a good word to end on, persistence. Thanks for taking time to talk to me, Americo. I appreciate it very much.
I appreciate it.
Well, that's a wrap for today's Business Bottom Line podcast. Take that tip and make your bottom line turn from red to black. Next week, we'll talk with another special guest, and we'll see you right here next time in the Jewel City of the Mountains, Greenville, Tennessee. This is the Stash saying we're here to inspire, inform, and improve your bottom line so you can grow, grow, grow.